Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yance, and today is part 3 of my interview with Randy James. Enjoy. Okay, we're back. The first thing I wanted to ask you about now transitioning into personal management is how did personal management come about?
I'm assuming you mean for me personally.
Yes, for you. Yes.
You're not looking for the history of personal management.
Yes, personal management. Yes, let's go through. Tell me the beginnings of.
I was at ABC. I was a director of casting at ABC for ABC Primetime in New York. I think there were a couple of factors personally for me that came about. I loved New York City, but I was never really comfortable living there. It never really felt like home for me. Although I was born in New York, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I missed the idea of living in LA. And so childhood friend Miles Levy, who was dabbling in the music business at the time, suggested, he knew this, and we talked about it, and he suggested that we open a talent management company in LA. And he was going to bankroll it for a certain period of time. And I think I was like 28 years old, 28 or 29. And I thought, well, in a way, I felt like I'd painted myself into a corner with the job that I had in New York. Although it was a great job, the next step would have been, to move up within the network, would have been to come back to LA and run the whole department, which is located in Los Angeles. But I didn't think that was realistic, because the network thought of my area of expertise by that point as New York City, in terms of my area of, my knowledge of the talent pool of New York City. And so I didn't really think that was realistically in the cards. And I thought, well, if I'm going to take a flyer on something and take a risk, this is the time to do it, because I'm young. Although I was newly married and had a baby at home, so from that standpoint, it was a little bit terrifying. But we decided to do it, and so I turned in my resignation at ABC, and it was all amicable. And what the angle that we had, because the last thing LA needed was another talent agency or talent management company drawing from the established, pool of actors that was in Los Angeles. The edge that I felt that we had was that the very fact that I knew so many New York actors, and ultimately the business was for the most part in Los Angeles. So New York actors, their dream was to get out to LA and to work in LA. So when we started our company, all of our clients, I think there were probably about a dozen of them initially, were New York actors that we brought out from New York to Los Angeles when we opened our doors. And so they were very much new to the casting community of New York, of Los Angeles. And I worked quite a bit with a lot of the casting directors that were in LA, because many of them had signed on to work on ABC pilots. So I would work in tandem with them, looking for talent for our show. So I had a working relationship with the casting community in Los Angeles. And so it all seemed to make sense. And so we started it in 1986 and built it up from there. And we got lucky with a few people going to work on series right off the bat, and got established. And I think really established ourselves as being a resource for new and emerging talent, which is what we talked about earlier, what I was doing in New York for the network. And so casting offices were willing to give us a shot if I called up and said, look, I know you don't know this actor or this actress, and I know she doesn't have a lot of meaningful credits, but trust me, give her a shot. She's fantastic. Let her come in and read. And so I think that I had a certain credibility, having done what I'd been doing in New York for so many years, that a lot of these casting directors were willing to take me at my word and give our clients that opportunity.
Was it something about personal management that did you enjoy that more? Did you enjoy more of the one-on-one relationship with your clients as opposed to with casting where you do get to know them, but it's, it's in and out?
Well, yeah, I used to equate it my job in New York, and I absolutely don't want to in any way sound like I'm complaining about it or denigrating in any way, because it was an amazing opportunity, as we discussed earlier, an opportunity that I didn't deserve and that I didn't earn. So I'm eternally grateful for that. But I used to equate it to being on an assembly line, where if you think of the pilot as let's say an automobile assembly line, and I was the guy bolting on the doors as the chassis went by or whatever, and then you never see the car again. And so that's how I kind of felt about my job, because I worked very hard on these shows and would put actors into these shows, and then the shows, the actors would go off to LA and the shows would go on the air, and I really had nothing to do with the show anymore, because I wasn't a casting director on the show, and had nothing to do with the actor anymore. And so I was interested in the concept of being able to find people that I believed in and put the same amount of work, into developing them and pushing them and selling them, but then be able to go on that journey with those actors and have that experience. And so that's what was appealing to me about it.
I'm going to talk a little bit in general. Talk a little bit about, for actors that don't know, what does a manager do?
Well, a manager's job, and it differs from relationship to relationship in terms of your relationship with your clients. It's very similar to what an agent does, but I think the basic difference if the relationships are working the way they should, and if the management company is working the way I've always run my company, which is a little bit different now. We can get into that a little bit later. Management companies now are very different than what they were, 20 years ago, because they're really agents that have left the agency business to become managers and sort of brought a lot of that culture with them. But my job is different depending on where a person is in their career. Initially, it's to get them working. And because compared to many management companies, we have kept our list small, and we really consider ourselves what is called a boutique agency. We can't afford to not have our clients working. So we have to really shake all the bushes and do everything that we can to make sure that our clients get up for every single opportunity that they can get up for, and that they're as prepared, especially if they're a young development client that doesn't have a lot of experience, that they're as prepared as possible for that audition. So we get them as much information as possible. We encourage them to get coaching and just really do everything that we can to prepare them, get them in the door, prepare them, sell them to the casting people as best we can. And I think agencies, because typically agencies have so many more clients, they really don't have the time to devote that kind of specialized attention to each of their clients. They sort of, submit dozens and dozens of people. And if they get auditions for anybody, they're thrilled. And the ones that they don't get auditions for, they're not spending a lot of time trying to go back and push those people. Where for us, as I said, we can't afford if we really believe somebody should get in on something, we, within reason, do everything that we can to make sure that that happens. Then as an actor's career develops, our job becomes more expansive in terms of, we're still looking for work for them, but we become kind of the general of the team that's working for them, because actors will take on a publicist. Obviously, they have an agent. The manager works with the agent, but is really, in a way, overseeing the agency and making sure that the agency is firing on all cylinders and doing the job that they should do. Because these agencies have many people within the agencies, actors that are competing for the same roles and the same opportunities, and maybe can earn a higher salary because they have higher earned quotes as actors. And so we have to make sure that the agency is working as hard as we think they should be working. So the job changes depending on where the actor is in their career. And now with the whole social media component, that's a big part of it too, because social media, the number of followers, developing social media, all of that comes into play. And especially when someone is of a celebrity status and you're getting branded PR campaigns and that type of thing, all of that comes into play too. And that's something that we do that the agencies typically are not that focused on.
Will you bring in a social media manager, somebody to do that like you would with a publicist?
We haven't really done that as of yet. I mean, we partner with, we bring in like people agents that specialize in branding deals, but we haven't actually brought in social media managers per se. We encourage our clients to, build up their social media platforms as much as they can. And some are completely not interested in that, and understandably, they're not interested in posting, every day about, what they're doing and creating. It's a lot of work to do it the right way. It's hours and hours and to do it right of work every day. So, and until you really get up above, 1 million followers, I don't think it really moves the needle that much in terms of casting decisions.
Agreed. But you mentioned some of them are not interested at all. See, that's why I thought maybe you would bring in like a manager, somebody to train them, or is it just like,
well,
there would still be a mute point.
They're not. I have clients that are just not all that interested in exposing themselves that way, their personal lives, it's just something that they're not necessarily comfortable with. And so it's not a matter of bringing in someone to show them how to do it. They're not particularly interested in doing that any more than they have to.
Yeah. So social media's kind of become like the next step in reality TV, except for now you're on all the time.
Yeah, it's true.
When you reach out to these agents, are they receptive to you guys telling them, to your management company, talking with them and telling them how your clients are being used? Do you find them receptive to the process?
Talent agencies?
Yeah.
You mean talent agencies that we already have our clients?
Yeah, that they're already
with, or when we're looking to put our clients with a talent agency.
Either way.
It's you have to do it in the right way. It can be a little bit delicate because we're all team members at the end of the day, and everybody has egos. And so I'm sure that the agents, I know that a lot of agents look at managers as sort of a thorn in their side. And there's there's managers who really contribute and add value to the relationship. And then there's managers who sign actors based upon who knows what, and they place them with these agencies, and the managers are in the revenue stream. They're getting their 10%, but they're not actively doing anything. They're not out there pitching and getting appointments and getting auditions. And I think those kind of relationships, the agents live with that because these people are sources of new clientele for them, but they're not very appreciative of sort of being told what to do or being criticized. But I've also found that those kind of managers don't do a lot of oversight,
No, they don't.
So it probably worked out well for them. But we don't operate that way. I mean, we work, I believe, as hard or harder than the agents that we work with.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it can get a little bit sticky because, nobody likes to be criticized. Nobody likes to be told that, I didn't like the way you handled this, or why didn't my client go up for this, or why, but each situation is different and each personality is different. And that's part of the job, is being able to a certain extent, be a diplomat and deal with people. At least I try to deal with people diplomatic. There are other managers that are more, bull in the china shop way of going about business. And that can be effective too. That's a viable approach. It's not my approach until you reach a point where it's needed, but I value my relationship with the agencies that we work with. And I always say to them, and this particularly comes up when we sign a new client who already has an agent, and they come to us through, however, and they're not thrilled with how things are going. And oftentimes they'll come to us and say, I really think I want to get a new agent. And our first response is, well, I'll tell you what, maybe let's give it 6 months or a year now that we're on board, because maybe we can help that agency to work more effectively. We're not interested in coming in and blowing up pre-existing relationships if we don't have to. But it's tricky, because the first thing when an actor comes in and says to their agent, I want to take on a manager, and it's not a manager you sent me to, because these agents will often send actors who want a manager to a management company that they know will protect them, which sort of flies in the face of the whole concept, because we should be a check and balance system for the agency. And if the agency is sending their clients to a manager that's going to protect them, the check and balance system is not going to be functioning the way it should be. When we come into one of these relationships from the outside, I say to the agent, look, I don't want you to look at me as an adversary, and I have no interest in pulling this client from you. I want to try to add value to this relationship as much as I can, and I'm encouraging your client to stay with you and for us all to work together and make this work. So I try to go into it with that perspective and that attitude, and some agents are very receptive to that, and some aren't, because they don't want somebody coming in to a pre-existing relationship. Very often, the actor and the agent have been together for years, and now all of a sudden, some schmo's coming in and looking over their shoulder, and it's hard for them to accept that. But sometimes it works out, and sometimes it becomes clear that it's not going to work out.
Going back to what you were talking about, the managers who, really aren't doing anything or are doing the bare minimum. Do you think that's just par for the course of the situation of managers, that like this actors have SAG, they're SAG franchise agents. There's certain things that make it so that you can't, what is to stop somebody from just labeling themselves as a manager?
Nothing, because that's a very good point. Agencies, they are actually controlled by the state of California and the state of New York. and they have to meet certain regulations, and they are looked at under the same guidelines as an employment agency, as like a temp agency. I mean, I don't know if it's still the case, but talent agencies were not ever supposed to have liquor, for example, on their premises. An agent wasn't supposed to have a bar cart in his office and have a cocktail at 5 o'clock, because they came under there were state guidelines. There are no guidelines for personal managers. Yeah. Anybody can just wake up one morning and decide that they want to they want to have an exciting career in talent management and set up an email account. And so that creates it creates a vacuum that pretty much anybody can be pulled into. And I think the instances where the scenario that I described to you is the most prevalent is with managers that represent specifically young people, because they can put an ad in a local paper saying that there's a talent search going on at a mall somewhere, and can go and just interview hundreds of kids. And there's so many parents that want to get their kids into show business, that they'll march them down there, and they can take on these kids that they think have a particular look, or maybe they give them audition scenes to read, and they're able to, just based upon instinct and natural talent, they're able to put a few good line readings together, and then they go out and they pitch them to the youth agencies or the agencies that have youth departments. And very often they may pitch 100 people, and if they get one person signed at one of these agencies, the agencies are willing to deal with them, as I said, because the agencies don't want to be going out, and they don't have the time to go out and do what these people are doing. And they'll go to talent, to beauty pageants and talent shows all over the country and that type of thing that most agencies are not going to go, do that kind of thing. So they become like talent scouts for the agencies. Those are the people that I think are the most guilty of what I described, because they're really not in the business. They don't have relationships with casting offices. They don't have a lot of experience in the business. And so they're delivering these people to these talent agencies who are doing all the work, and the managers are putting themselves in the revenue stream of the commissions. They're taking their 10%. The agents are taking their 10%. The parents of these kids don't really know any better, at least not in the beginning. And it becomes a numbers game where they may have this kind of a situation. If you're not really working for anybody every day, you can have thousands of clients, because when you're placing them with a talent agency, you don't really need to do anything. And so it's certainly a viable business model. There's no question about that. But I think that's where the scenario I described is the most prevalent.
Do you think it kind of becomes
harder in the adult world, because adult actors have more access to they've been trying to get into the business for years. They know other actors. They know other people that are with other agencies, and they can kind of vet these people out a little bit more easily.
Do you think it sort of becomes like the blind leading the blind type of thing?
In what way?
Well, I mean, you have these managers, they're not really with the business, then they're going to bring them to an agency. But the people that, they don't understand the business either. So they're kind of just, like you said, farming them out.
Right.
Whether the agency is good or not for them, they're just like, oh, we got a bite. It's like they're just fishing.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. They're just, there are some who do this that actually, do the work, and they go to these pageants and they go to these talent shows, and because those places are good sources of talent, And then they sign them and they actually do the work. And so they're not, I can't categorize all of them that way, but
Yeah.
you can see where it's very tempting to set up this business model where you go out and find these people, and you, if you're successful in placing them with a talent agency, there's not really that much more you have to do. I'll tell you, in a way, I'm probably going to have a lot of attorneys get mad at me for this, but the entertainment attorneys have sort of the same deal, where an entertainment attorney only has to work when a deal is brought to them. They're not in the business of going out and looking for deals. So an entertainment attorney can function with a lot more clients, function effectively with a lot more clients than an agent or talent manager can, because we have to go out every day and pound the pavement looking for work for these people. The attorneys only have to work when we bring them a deal to negotiate. So they're, just as far as numbers, they can have a lot more clients, because the clients that and negotiating an actor's deal, let's say in a television series, maybe, I mean, some negotiations take longer than others, but for the most part, they're fairly straightforward and don't take more than a few days at most. And then those actors go on a television series that potentially for 7 years. The entertainment attorneys continue to collect, they get 5%. They collect 5% on those episodic paychecks for 7 years. They don't really have to go and negotiate another deal for that actor, at least not on a series, until the contract is up and if the show is going to continue, they renegotiate it. So I think they have the best job in the business. I mean, quite honest.
Yeah. I would agree.
I mean, they've earned it. They've gone through, many years of law school to get there. So I don't begrudge that.
I mean, my brother's a lawyer, so yeah, I know that. Getting back to you, do you enjoy developing the talent?
Yeah, that was always the fun part for me. And starting when I was at ABC, starting when I had the job in New York, I really enjoyed that part of it. And as I said, I think that's part of why I wanted to leave and do what I'm doing now, so I could continue to be a part of that journey. Because it's, I mean, as exciting as it is to do a deal for an established actor, that's from the business side, that part is exciting, and making money is exciting. But to take someone that you believe in, that has these dreams, and to actually play a small part in helping those people's dreams come true, and seeing how their lives change and the inflection point that maybe I've had in that hopefully positive change in their lives. Sometimes this business doesn't change people's lives for the better, ultimately, in retrospect, but that is exciting to me. Yeah, that's always been a fascinating part of it.
What do you find that actors don't know that you think they should know? It's kind of a loaded question, I realize.
Well, no, we touched on this. We touched on this the other day. I think that because they don't really know the casting process from the other side of the desk. They don't understand how much goes into a decision about choosing the right person for a role. And I understand how that can be very, very frustrating for an actor. So they'll work very hard on audition, and then they do the job, they do the audition, and they don't get the job. And that happens over and over and over again. And it's very disheartening for them. But they don't realize all of the nuances that go into these decisions. There are just so many X factors. and having been in the rooms where these conversations go on about this actor versus this actor, and all of the elements that go into making this decision. The look, if it's a kid, how much do they look like the parent? If it's a parent, how much? And if there's a young person who's the star of the show, how much does the parent look like they could be the parent of this young person? Does if the character is a vulnerable character, but the writers know that in season 2 something is going to happen to this character where we have to really see this core of inner strength. Do they believe that this actor has that side of them naturally? I could go on and give a dozen examples of these things, and I don't think actors really realize that, and it becomes really frustrating for them. We have a young client, a young girl who was recommended to us by an acting teacher who had never worked. And I just thought she was wonderful. She had, no credits, and we signed her. And this was one of those examples where we called up a casting director who was casting a pilot and said, this person's never worked. She doesn't have a single acting credit. Just do me a favor and audition her. And she ended up getting the part. The show got picked up, went on the air, and we took the mother and the girl out to lunch, and they were thrilled. And I said to them at lunch, I cautioned them, and I said, I just want you to understand something. As talented, this takes nothing away from your talent at all, but you cannot appreciate how unusual this is. This is not the way it's supposed to be. And if I hope this show lasts for years, but if it doesn't, and you go back out into the auditioning pool, don't get discouraged and don't expect this to happen every time you audition. And the show, for various reasons, didn't get picked up for a second season, and that is exactly what's happened. Now, this girl is no less talented than she was 2 years ago when this happened. In fact, she's far more talented now, having had that experience working with terrific actors, having continued to study. She's actually a better actress now, and she still possesses all of the qualities that got her that role. But for whatever reason, the things that she has been up for, she didn't check whatever those maybe inexplicable other boxes were. And she's gotten close on things, but at the end of the day, she hasn't gotten, she's gotten a couple of things, but she hasn't gotten the next important job. And I think that that's probably the toughest thing for actors to understand, that when the right job comes along, when the right role comes along, you may be the only person that can do it.
Yeah.
And so if you believe in yourself and you're consistently getting good feedback, I don't encourage people to stay in this business, as I've said, unless if they can imagine themselves being happy and fulfilled doing anything else, because other than perhaps the music industry, I can't imagine a tougher business, to break into than this.
Yeah.
But if you're continually getting good feedback and you feel good about your work and people are responsive to the work, you just have to kind of accept the process. And that process is a process, for the most part, you cannot control. And all you can do is be as prepared as you possibly can. And if you're doing a self-tape, as I said, leave them with the audition you want to leave them with. And then you've done everything you can do, and you just have to leave the process up to, to those people that are controlling it.
We touched on a little bit of the importance of improv. How should an actor work with you?
How should they work with me?
Yeah. How do you want an actor to work with you?
Well, I want them to be I want them to make as much of a commitment to me as I'm making to them. And when I say me, I mean my company, Bolton and Clarina, who work with me. And quite honestly, at this point in my career, they're the ones that in terms of the developmental clients are doing most of the heavy lifting. And they work really, really hard. And I still work really hard. And so what I look for in an actor that I'm interested in working with is the same level of commitment. And it's very frustrating to me when in the few situations that I've had where we're doing everything that we're supposed to do, and the actor doesn't seem to be as invested in it as we are, and that can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. As blatantly as we get them an audition, let's say it's a self-tape, and we give them a deadline, and the deadline comes and we don't have a tape from them, and we have to circle back and say, can we expect tape today? And then they'll say, oh, can you get an extension? And I don't think they appreciate that our reputations are on the line too. This is a business for us. We have to put food on our table, and our business relies entirely on the strength of our relationship with these casting offices. And if all we're doing is they're giving us appointments and we're not giving giving them the auditions and then calling them back and asking for extensions all the time.
Yeah, it's not going to look good on you.
It's not a good look for us, and it's not encouraging them to want to continue to work with us. And so it not only does it impact us, but it impacts our ability to do the job for the actor as well. And so we really appreciate when you can see immediately the level of commitment, when an actor puts in the same level of commitment that we put in. And when they don't, it's very frustrating for all of us, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. Because if you're talking to these people and you're pitching them and you're saying so-and-so does this, so-and-so does this, and then you can't even get the tape in, and then you got to ask for, an extension every time. Then that actor, goes on some kind of a list or something. It's like, oh, it's the actor that's like late all the time. And then it looks bad on you because they start looking at the management company and the agency and they're going, well, why are they not showing up on time? So I'm glad you said that. It's everybody's got to be working together at the same time, working just as hard.
Well,
so can do it.
And if that's the person's work ethic, you have to assume that work ethic or lack thereof is going to continue on if they should get a job. And that's another big part of it. And, there are clients of ours where there have been for whatever reason, difficult negotiations or difficult scenarios leading up to an actor who's already gotten a job. And maybe it's a scheduling issue where, recently, there's a recent example of this where a client of ours is about to start a play in New York. But they have another thing coming up that they booked for a significant amount of money that would have meant that they couldn't be there for the first day of rehearsal, or technically we were able to get them there, but the rehearsal couldn't start in the morning. It had to start in the afternoon. And the producers and everybody were very frustrated by this. And they'd never worked with this actor before. I was able to say to them with 100% honesty and certainty, I said, when this guy shows up, he will work harder and he will be more on top of it, or as on top of his game, than anybody you've ever worked with before. The fact that he's going to miss 5 hours of the first day of rehearsal will have virtually zero negative impact on your show. You will never work with an actor who is more dedicated and more hardworking than he is. I want to be able to say that about all of my clients.
Yeah.
So, and know that they're not going to let me down. And so if we're having these kind of situations early on with actors, just for the audition process, it makes me very nervous about going on record and making those kind of assertions to people that I'm not 100% sure are going to pan.
But that in some ways that's different because those are scheduling conflicts. But you're right. You had to pitch them and be like, look, he's going to be there and he's going to be good. You don't have to worry if he misses, the first 5 hours of rehearsal, he's going to show up there. I mean, that stuff happens all the time, scheduling conflicts. I mean, sometimes people can't do something because, the scheduling goes into here. So yeah. Okay, that about does it for part 3 of my interview with Randy James. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to personally thank him. As always, you can find me at Justin Yachts. Please like, share, and subscribe, and consider checking out the YouTube channel. And I will see you next time on the DMF.